I woke up one day and didn't recognize my own face. My mom didn't recognize me either. She walked right past me in the recovery room, like I was a stranger. The doctor said he'd do just a small nose touch-up, something subtle, natural, barely noticeable. I trusted him. I signed every paper without reading, said yes to everything he suggested, believed every word that came out of his mouth wearing that crisp white coat. Now, sitting here staring at the mirror, I see a completely different person staring back. My nose. It's not my nose anymore. It's too thin, too sharp, too wrong. My whole face looks like it belongs to someone else, someone I never wanted to be. Have you ever trusted someone completely and woken up regretting every second of it? Comment below if you've ever been through something like this. My name is Rachel, and this is my story. I grew up in a small suburb outside Cleveland, Ohio. One of those neighborhoods where everyone knew everyone. My family wasn't rich, but we had enough. Mom worked at the local grocery store. Dad managed a hardware shop downtown. And I was just the girl with the slightly bumped nose who dreamed of being in magazines someday. I wasn't ugly. Not at all. But I always thought my nose was too big. Too round at the tip. Just not perfect enough all through high school. I'd look at photos of myself and zoom in on that one feature I couldn't stand. My friends would say, "Rachel, you're beautiful just the way you are." My mom would hold my face in her hands and say, "Baby, God made you perfect." But I couldn't see it. I couldn't see what they saw. By the time I turned 23, I had saved up just enough money from waitressing at Danny's Diner on Route 42. I wanted this. I needed this. I researched doctors online, read reviews, looked at before and after photos until my eyes blurred. That's when I found Dr. Martin Calloway. His website was sleek, professional, covered in 5-star reviews and testimonials from women saying he changed their lives. He had an office in downtown Cincinnati, not too far from where I lived. His tagline was, "Subtle changes, stunning confidence." That's exactly what I wanted. I called his office on a Tuesday morning, my hands shaking as I held the phone. The receptionist was sweet, booked me in for a consultation 2 weeks later. When I walked into that clinic for the first time, everything looked perfect. Clean white walls, modern furniture, soft piano music playing in the background, framed photos of smiling women lining the hallway. I sat in the waiting room flipping through a magazine, my stomach twisting with nerves and excitement. Dr. Calloway walked in wearing a tailored navy suit under his white coat, clean-shaven, confident smile. Looked like he belonged on a TV medical drama. "Rachel," he said warmly, shaking my hand. "Let's talk about what you want." I told him everything. I showed him photos of noses I liked. Explained how I wanted just a small refinement. Nothing drastic. Just enough to feel more confident in photos. He nodded, listened, took notes, then pulled out a tablet and showed me digital simulations of what my nose could look like. "This is conservative," he said, swiping through images, "but this is what I'd recommend." The image he pointed to looked elegant, refined, perfectly proportioned. I stared at it for a long time. "Is that really possible?" I asked. "Absolutely," he said, his voice smooth as butter. "I do this all the time, Rachel. Trust me, you're going to love it." I wanted to believe him. I wanted so badly to believe him. We scheduled the surgery for 3 weeks later. I told my mom the night before, sitting at the kitchen table under the soft yellow glow of the old lamp she'd had since I was a kid. She looked worried. "Rachel, honey, are you sure about this?" I nodded, pushing my mashed potatoes around my plate. "Mom, I've wanted this forever. It's my face, my choice." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Okay, baby, but promise me you'll be careful." I promised. The morning of the surgery, I woke up at 5 a.m., my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't eat. Couldn't drink. Just sat on the edge of my bed staring at my reflection one last time. This is it. I whispered to myself, after today everything changes. Mom drove me to the clinic, held my hand the whole way, didn't say much, just kept glancing at me with those worried eyes. We pulled into the parking lot and I took a deep breath. Here we go. I checked in, changed into the hospital gown, lay down on the cold surgical table while nurses buzzed around me hooking up IVs, checking monitors, speaking in low, calm voices. Dr. Calloway walked in, smiled down at me. "Ready, Rachel?" I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. He patted my shoulder. "You're in good hands. I'll see you when you wake up." The anesthesiologist placed a mask over my face. "Count backwards from 10, she said softly. 10, 9, 8. And then, nothing. When I woke up, the world felt hazy, muffled, like I was underwater. My face throbbed, a deep aching pain that radiated from the center of my face outward. I blinked slowly, trying to focus. A nurse was standing beside me, checking my vitals. "You're all done, sweetie," she said with a gentle smile. "Surgery went great. You just rest now." I tried to speak, but my mouth felt dry, heavy. "My mom," I croaked. "She's in the waiting room. I'll get her in a minute." I closed my eyes, too tired to think, too groggy to worry. But then I heard footsteps. I opened my eyes and saw my mom walk into the room, her purse clutched tightly in her hands, her face scanning the space. She looked right at me and kept walking. She walked past my bed like I wasn't even there. "Mom?" I tried to say, but it came out as a whisper. She stopped, turned slowly, her eyes landing on me with confusion. "I'm sorry," she said to the nurse. "I'm looking for my daughter. Rachel." "Rachel Thompson?" The nurse pointed at me. "She's right here, ma'am." My mom's face went pale. She stepped closer, staring at me like I was a ghost. "Rachel?" she whispered, her voice cracking. I nodded, tears filling my eyes. She covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes wide with shock. "Oh my God. What did he do to you?" That's when I knew something was very, very wrong. They wouldn't let me see my face right away. The nurse said it was normal, said I was swollen, said I needed to wait for the bandages to come off in a week. But I could feel it. I could feel that something was different, wrong. My mom sat beside my hospital bed holding my hand, her face tight with worry, her eyes red from crying. She didn't say much on the drive home. Neither did I. I just stared out the window watching the Ohio countryside blur past, my face throbbing with every bump in the road. When we got home, I went straight to my room, locked the door, and sat on the edge of my bed staring at the wall. I wanted to rip the bandages off right then and there. I wanted to see what he did to me, but I was terrified. The next few days were torture. I couldn't eat without pain, couldn't sleep without waking up in a panic, couldn't look at myself in the mirror because all I saw was gauze and tape and bruises spreading across my cheeks like dark purple storm clouds. My mom brought me soup, sat with me, rubbed my back while I cried. "It's going to be okay. Baby," she whispered, "we'll figure this out." But I didn't believe her. A week later, I went back to Dr. Calloway's office for the bandage removal. I sat in that same waiting room, but this time everything felt different. The soft piano music sounded hollow. The smiling photos on the wall looked fake, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Dr. Calloway walked in with that same confident smile. "Ready to see the new you?" he asked, like this was some kind of makeover show. I didn't answer. He carefully removed the bandages, peeling away layer after layer of gauze, and then he handed me a mirror. "Take a look," he said proudly. I lifted the mirror slowly, and I froze. The person staring back at me wasn't Rachel Thompson from Cleveland. Ohio, it was someone else entirely. My nose was thin. Too thin. It looked like a sharp line down the center of my face, like someone had taken a knife and carved away everything that made it mine. My nostrils were pinched, my bridge was too narrow, and the tip looked like it had been sculpted out of plastic. I looked like a different person. I looked like one of those Instagram filters. "But permanent. What did you do?" I whispered, my voice shaking. Dr. Calloway smiled, clearly not reading the room. "I refined it, Rachel." Gave you that elegant, classic look we talked about. I never asked for this, I said, louder now, tears streaming down my face. I wanted subtle. I wanted natural. I wanted to still look like me. He frowned, his confidence faltering for the first time. You're swollen, he said quickly. Give it time. In a few weeks, you'll love it. But I knew better. I knew this wasn't swelling. This was permanent. I left that office in a daze, my mom guiding me to the car with her arm around my shoulders. We sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes while I sobbed uncontrollably. I don't recognize myself, I cried. Mom, I don't look like me anymore. She held me tight, her own tears falling into my hair. We're going to fix this, she said firmly. I promise you, baby, we're going to fix this. But I didn't know if that was even possible. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I couldn't go back to work, couldn't face my friends, couldn't even go to the grocery store without feeling like everyone was staring at me.
Which city are you listening from today? Hit like if this story moved you and make sure to subscribe so you never miss a twist. Your support transforms each story into something unforgettable. Let us know your city below.
My coworkers at Danny's Diner kept texting, asking when I'd be back. I ignored every message. My best friend, Ashley, showed up at my house one afternoon with pizza and ice cream, trying to cheer me up. When I opened the door, she gasped. Rachel, oh my God, I know, I said flatly, stepping aside to let her in. She tried to be supportive, tried to say all the right things, but I could see it in her eyes. She didn't recognize me either. I spent hours every day researching revision rhinoplasty, reading forums, watching YouTube videos of people who'd gone through the same thing. Some of them had success stories, others, not so much. I found a support group on Facebook called Botched Rhinoplasty Survivors, and I joined immediately. It was filled with hundreds of people sharing their stories, posting photos, offering advice, venting their frustration and heartbreak. For the first time since the surgery, I didn't feel alone. One woman named Jennifer from Portland messaged me privately. I saw your post. She wrote, I went through the exact same thing 3 years ago. My doctor made my nose way too thin, and I hated myself for months. I replied immediately, Did you fix it? Did you get a revision? She responded within minutes. Yes, but it took time. And it took finding the right doctor, someone who actually listened. She sent me the name of a surgeon in Chicago, Dr. Angela Reyes, who specialized in revision rhinoplasty. She's expensive, Jennifer warned, but she's worth every penny. She gave me my face back. I stared at that name for a long time. Dr. Angela Reyes. That night, I looked her up. Her website was simple, professional, filled with real before and after photos of people who looked like themselves again. Just better. Her tagline was, restoring confidence, one revision at a time. I felt a flicker of hope for the first time in weeks. I called her office the next morning. The receptionist was kind, patient, didn't rush me when I started crying on the phone explaining what had happened. She booked me a consultation for 2 weeks later. My mom drove me to Chicago on a cold, gray Saturday morning in late October. We didn't talk much during the 4-hour drive, just listened to the radio and watched the flat Illinois farmland roll by. When we arrived at Dr. Reyes's office, it felt different from Dr. Calloway's clinic. It was smaller, quieter, less flashy. The waiting room had comfortable chairs, warm lighting, and instead of magazine covers, the walls were covered in handwritten thank you notes from patients. I felt myself relax just a little. Dr. Reyes walked in wearing scrubs and a calm, gentle smile. She was a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a soft voice. Rachel, she said, sitting down across from me. Tell me everything, and I did. I told her about Dr. Calloway, about the promises he made, about waking up and not recognizing myself, about my mom walking past me in the recovery room. I cried through most of it. She listened. Really listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't rush me. Just nodded and took notes. When I finished, she handed me a tissue and said, I'm so sorry you went through that. But I want you to know we can fix this. Those 5 words, felt like a lifeline. She examined my nose carefully, took photos from every angle, explained in detail what Dr. Calloway had done wrong. He over-resected the cartilage, she said. Removed too much structure, which is why your nose looks too thin and pinched. We'll need to rebuild it using cartilage grafts, likely from your septum or your rib. It sounded complicated. It sounded scary. But it also sounded like hope. How long will it take? I asked. The surgery itself is about 4 hours, she said. Recovery is longer than a primary rhinoplasty. But if we do this right, you'll look like yourself again. I promise. I looked at my mom. She nodded. Let's do it, I said. We scheduled the revision surgery for 6 weeks later, right before Christmas. I spent those 6 weeks preparing mentally. Physically, emotionally, I ate healthy, avoided alcohol, did breathing exercises, read every piece of post-op advice I could find. I also filed a formal complaint against Dr. Calloway with the Ohio Medical Board. I wasn't the only one. Turns out, there were at least a dozen other women who had similar experiences. Noses that were too thin, too sharp, too unnatural. One woman's nose had collapsed entirely. Another had chronic breathing problems. The board launched an investigation. I didn't know if anything would come of it, but at least I had done something. December came fast. The morning of my revision surgery, I woke up feeling strangely calm. My mom made me pancakes even though I couldn't eat them, and we drove back to Chicago in silence. This time, when I lay down on the surgical table, I wasn't scared, I was ready. Dr. Reyes stood beside me, her hand on my shoulder. We're going to take care of you, Rachel. I'll see you when you wake up. I closed my eyes, counted backwards from 10, and let go. When I woke up, the pain was worse than the first time. My face felt heavy, tight, like it had been rebuilt from the inside out. But this time, when my mom walked into the recovery room, she didn't walk past me. She came straight to my side, took my hand, and smiled through her tears. There's my girl, she whispered. I couldn't see my face yet. It was wrapped in bandages again, swollen again, aching again. But something felt different. Something felt right. The next few months were hard. Recovery from a revision is no joke. I had to wear a splint for 2 weeks, avoid any pressure on my nose, sleep sitting up, take painkillers around the clock. But Dr. Reyes checked on me constantly, answered every panicked text, reassured me every step of the way. When the bandages finally came off, I was terrified to look. Dr. Reyes handed me the mirror slowly. Take your time, she said softly. I lifted it, and I saw me. Not the stranger from Dr. Calloway's office. Not the girl with the too thin nose. Me, Rachel Thompson. My nose was still refined, still elegant, still better than it had been before any of this started. But it looked like mine. It fit my face. It looked natural. I started crying immediately. But this time they were tears of relief. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you so much. Dr. Reyes smiled. You did this, Rachel. You fought for yourself. I went home that day feeling lighter than I had in months. My mom hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. You're back. Baby, she said. My girl is back. And she was right. I started going out again. Seeing friends again, posting photos again. At first, people asked questions. But I was honest. I told them what happened. Told them about Dr. Calloway. Told them about Dr. Reyes. Some people were shocked. Others shared their own stories of cosmetic procedures gone wrong. It was hard. But it was also freeing. A few months later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from the Ohio Medical Board. Dr. Martin Calloway's medical license had been suspended pending further investigation. 3 other women had come forward with malpractice claims. He was being sued. I sat on my porch, reading that letter over and over, feeling a strange mix of anger, sadness, and relief. He couldn't hurt anyone else. Not anymore. I framed that letter, not because I was proud of what happened to me, but because it was proof that I hadn't stayed silent, that I had fought back, that I had survived. Today, almost 2 years later, I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. I went back to work at Danny's Diner, saved up enough to go back to school, started studying to become a patient advocate for people going through cosmetic surgery complications. I want to help others the way Jennifer helped me. I want to be the voice that says, "You're not alone. And you can fix this. My nose isn't perfect, but it's mine. And that's all I ever wanted." I still think about that day I woke up and didn't recognize myself. I think about my mom walking past me in that recovery room. I think about the months of pain, the fear, the anger. But I also think about Dr. Reyes. I think about the support group. I think about the women who reached out to me, shared their stories, held my hand through the darkest days. I think about my mom, who never left my side. And I think about the girl I see in the mirror now. She's been through hell, but she's still standing. If you're reading this, and you're going through something similar, I want you to know, it's not over. You can fight back. You can find the right doctor. You can get your face back. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. But it's possible, and you deserve it. Don't let anyone take away who you are. Not a doctor, not a procedure, not anyone. You are worth fighting for. Trust me, I know. I never thought I'd become the kind of person who posts their story online for the world to see. But there I was, 6 months after my revision surgery, sitting in my bedroom with my laptop open, typing out every painful detail of what happened to me. I titled the post, "My doctor botched my nose job and refused to take responsibility." I included before and after photos, copies of the consent forms I signed, screenshots of emails where Dr. Calloway dismissed my concerns. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I didn't hold back. And then I hit publish. Within hours, the post had dozens of comments. Women from all over the country reached out, sharing their own nightmare, experiences with cosmetic surgeons who promised the world and delivered disasters. One woman from Texas said her doctor gave her a nose so crooked she couldn't breathe properly anymore. Another from Florida said she'd had 3 revision surgeries and still didn't look like herself. A man from California said his wife had attempted suicide after a botched procedure left her unrecognizable. Reading those stories broke my heart. But it also made me realize something important. This wasn't just my problem. This was happening everywhere, to countless people, and nobody was talking about it loud enough. I started a blog. I called it Real Talk, Real Faces. It wasn't fancy, just a simple WordPress site with a clean layout and a mission statement that read, "A safe space for people affected by cosmetic surgery complications to share their stories, find support, and demand accountability." I posted my full story on the homepage, along with resources for finding qualified revision surgeons, links to medical boards, tips for filing complaints, and a directory of support groups. Within a month, I had over 1,000 visitors. Within 3 months, I had over 10,000. People were sending me their stories daily, asking for advice, thanking me for giving them hope. One message in particular stuck with me. It was from a 19-year-old girl named Emily from Seattle. She wrote, "I just had a rhinoplasty 2 weeks ago and I hate what I see in the mirror. I've been crying every day and I don't know what to do. Your blog made me realize I'm not alone." "Thank you," I cried reading that. I replied immediately, walked her through the steps I took, connected her with Dr. Reyes' office, and checked in with her every week. A year later, she sent me a photo of herself smiling, her nose beautifully reconstructed. Her confidence restored. She wrote, "You saved my life, Rachel." That's when I knew this was bigger than me. I started doing interviews. Local news stations picked up my story first. Then a few national podcasts. Then a segment on a daytime talk show. I sat on that bright studio couch under hot lights. Cameras pointed at me, the host asking, "What do you want people to know about cosmetic surgery?" I looked straight into the camera and said, "Do your research. Don't just trust a website or a few good reviews. Ask questions, demand answers, and never, Ever let a doctor pressure you into a procedure you're not completely comfortable with? The audience applauded. But more importantly, my inbox exploded. Hundreds of messages from people saying they were canceling their surgeries, doing more research, asking better questions. I felt like I was finally doing something that mattered, but not everyone was happy about it. Dr. Calloway's lawyer sent me a cease and desist letter, threatening to sue me for defamation if I didn't take down my blog and stop talking about him publicly. I was terrified at first. I called my mom, my voice shaking, and read her the letter over the phone. She was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Baby, you're telling the truth. And the truth isn't defamation." She was right. I contacted a lawyer through a legal aid organization that specialized in patient advocacy cases. Her name was Margaret Lynn, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney in her 40s who'd handled dozens of medical malpractice cases. She reviewed everything: the consent forms, the photos, the emails, the complaint I filed with the medical board. Then she looked at me and said, "You have nothing to worry about. Everything you've posted is factual and protected speech. If he wants to sue you, let him try. It'll only make things worse for him." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. We sent a response to his lawyer, politely but firmly stating that I would not be taking down my blog or stopping my advocacy work, and that any further legal threats would be met with a countersuit for harassment. We never heard from them again. But the medical board investigation continued. More women came forward. 7 total, including me, all with similar stories: noses that were too thin, too sharp, too unnatural, and a doctor who dismissed their concerns and refused to offer solutions. The board held a formal hearing. I was asked to testify. I sat in a sterile conference room across from a panel of doctors and medical professionals, a court reporter typing every word I said. They asked me to describe my experience, to explain what went wrong, to provide evidence. I did. I showed them the before and after photos, the consent forms, the emails. I told them about waking up and not recognizing myself, about my mom walking past me, about the months of depression and isolation. One of the panelists, an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes, leaned forward and said, "I'm so sorry you went through this, Rachel. Thank you for your courage." I nodded, holding back tears. 3 months later, the board issued its decision. Dr. Martin Calloway's medical license was revoked, not suspended. Revoked. He could appeal, but the evidence was overwhelming. He was done. I got the news on a Tuesday afternoon while I was at work, refilling ketchup bottles and wiping down tables at Danny's Diner. My phone buzzed, and I saw an email from the medical board. I stepped outside into the parking lot, hands shaking, and opened it. When I read the words "license revoked," I sank down onto the curb and cried. Not sad tears, relief tears, justice tears. My coworker, Maria, came outside and sat next to me. "You okay, Chica?" I nodded, wiping my face with the back of my hand. "Yeah, I'm okay. It's finally over." She hugged me tight. That night, I updated my blog with the news. I wrote, "Today, justice was served. Dr. Calloway can no longer hurt anyone else. To everyone who supported me, who shared their stories, who refused to stay silent, thank you. We did this together." The post got thousands of shares. Messages poured in from all over the country. People celebrating, thanking me, sharing their own victories. It felt surreal, but it also felt right. Around the same time, something else happened, something I didn't expect. Got a call from a producer at a major streaming network. She said they were developing a docu-series about cosmetic surgery complications and wanted to feature my story. At first, I wasn't sure. Did I really want to relive all of this again, on camera, for millions of people to see? But then I thought about Emily and Jennifer and all the other women who reached out to me. I thought about the 19-year-old girl sitting in her bedroom right now, hating her reflection, thinking she's alone. And I said yes. The filming process took 6 months. They interviewed me. My mom, Dr. Reyes, Margaret the lawyer, even some of the other women who filed complaints against Dr. Calloway. They went deep, showing the good, the bad, and the ugly, They didn't sugarcoat anything. When the docuseries finally aired, it was surreal seeing my face on screen, hearing my story told to millions of people. The response was overwhelming. The hashtag Justice for Rachel started trending on Twitter.news. Outlets picked it up. People I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. But the most meaningful response came from strangers. People who messaged me saying, "I was about to get surgery next week, but after watching your story, I'm going to do more research first." Or, "I went through the same thing 5 years ago and never told anyone. Thank you for giving me the courage to speak up." That's what mattered. Not the fame, not the attention, the impact. A few months after the docuseries aired, I was invited to speak at a medical conference in Boston about patient safety in cosmetic surgery. I stood on that stage in front of hundreds of doctors, surgeons, and medical professionals, and I told my story. I didn't hold back. I talked about the importance of informed consent, about listening to patients, about taking responsibility when things go wrong. I said, patients trust you with their bodies, their faces, their lives. The trust is sacred. And when you betray it, the damage isn't just physical. It's emotional, psychological, and sometimes permanent. The room was silent. When I finished, they gave me a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens of surgeons came up to me, shook my hand, thanked me for speaking out. One older surgeon, a man in his 60s with white hair and glasses, said, "I've been practicing for 30 years, and I've never heard a patient speak so honestly. You've changed the way I'm going to approach my work from now on." That moment made everything worth it. I realized then that my story wasn't just about me anymore. It was about creating change. It was about making sure what happened to me didn't happen to someone else, and I wasn't going to stop. 2 years after my revision surgery, I enrolled in a patient advocacy certification program at a community college just outside Cleveland. I wanted to make this official. I wanted to turn my pain into purpose. The program was intense. 12 weeks of classes covering medical ethics, patient rights, healthcare navigation, and conflict resolution. I was the youngest person in my cohort by almost a decade, but I didn't care. I soaked up every lesson, asked a million questions, stayed after class to talk to the instructors. One of my professors, Dr. Helen Ortiz, pulled me aside after the final exam and said, "Rachel, you have a gift. You've lived this, and that gives you a perspective most advocates never have. Don't waste it." I graduated top of my class. A few weeks later, I officially launched Real Talk Advocacy, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping people navigate cosmetic surgery complications. I offered free consultations, connected people with qualified revision surgeons, helped them file complaints with medical boards, and provided emotional support throughout the process. I ran it out of my tiny apartment at first, just me, my laptop, and a phone line. But within 6 months, I had helped over 50 people. Within a year, over 200. I started getting calls from lawyers asking me to serve as an expert witness in malpractice cases. I testified in courtrooms, sat across from doctors who'd hurt their patients, and told the truth. Some of those doctors lost their licenses. Others were forced to pay massive settlements. And every single time, I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who woke up and didn't recognize herself, the one who thought her life was over. She would be so proud of who I became. My mom definitely was. She came to every speaking engagement, every conference, every interview. She sat in the front row, tears in her eyes, clapping louder than anyone else. One night, after I gave a talk at a hospital in Columbus, she hugged me tight and whispered, "You turned the worst thing that ever happened to you into something beautiful, baby. I'm so proud of you." I cried into her shoulder like I was a little girl again. Around that time, I also started dating again. I hadn't been interested in romance for the longest time. Too focused on healing, on advocacy, on rebuilding my life. But then I met James. He was a nurse at the hospital where I gave that talk in Columbus. Tall, kind eyes, soft-spoken, with a smile that made me feel safe. He approached me after my speech, shook my hand and said, "That was incredible. Thank you for doing this work." We talked for an hour in the hospital cafeteria over terrible coffee. He didn't treat me like a victim. He didn't pity me. He just listened, asked thoughtful questions, and made me laugh. We went on our first date a week later, dinner at a little Italian place downtown. He told me about his work in the ICU, about losing patients, about the emotional toll of healthcare. I told him about my blog, my advocacy work, my plans to expand the nonprofit. At the end of the night, he walked me to my car and said, "I'd really like to see you again, Rachel." I smiled. "I'd like that too." We've been together ever since. He's been my biggest supporter, my rock, the person who reminds me to take breaks, to rest, to take care of myself the way I take care of others. He proposed to me last spring, on a quiet Saturday morning in my mom's backyard, the place where I grew up, the place where I first looked in the mirror and hated what I saw. He got down on one knee under the old oak tree and said, "Rachel, you're the strongest, bravest, most beautiful person I've ever met. Will you marry me?" I said yes before he even finished the sentence. We're getting married next summer. Small ceremony, close friends and family. Nothing fancy, just us and the people we love, celebrating the life I rebuilt. My advocacy work has grown beyond anything I imagined. Real Talk Advocacy now has a small team, 3 other advocates who work with me, all of them survivors of cosmetic surgery complications. We've helped over 1,000 people so far. We've partnered with hospitals, medical schools, and professional organizations to create better, informed consent processes. We've pushed for legislation requiring cosmetic surgeons to disclose their complication rates. We've created a database of vetted revision surgeons across the country, and we're just getting started. I was recently invited to speak at a TEDx event in New York City. I stood on that red circle under the bright lights, looked out at the audience, and told my story one more time. But this time, I didn't just talk about what happened to me. I talked about resilience. I talked about the power of turning pain into purpose. I talked about the importance of using your voice, even when it shakes. I ended my talk by saying, I woke up one day and didn't recognize my own face. But I didn't let that define me. I fought back, I rebuilt, and I found a way to help others do the same. And if you're going through something right now, something that feels impossible, something that makes you want to give up, please don't. Your story isn't over, and you have more power than you think. The audience stood up and applauded for what felt like forever. I cried on that stage, overwhelmed, grateful, proud. Afterward, people lined up to talk to me, to shake my hand, to share their own stories. One woman, probably in her 60s, grabbed my hand and said, "My daughter went through something similar. She didn't survive it. Thank you for giving a voice to people like her." I held her hand tight and whispered, "I'm so sorry. I'll keep fighting for her too." That moment reminded me why I do this. It's not about me anymore. It's about every person who's ever felt broken, unrecognizable, lost. It's about showing them that healing is possible, that justice is possible, that they are not alone. I still look in the mirror sometimes and think about the girl I used to be, the one with the bumped nose who dreamed of being in magazines, the one who trusted the wrong doctor, the one who woke up and didn't recognize herself. But now, when I look in the mirror, I see someone different. I see a survivor. I see an advocate. I see someone who refused to stay silent, who turned her pain into power, who built something bigger than herself, and I see someone who's finally at peace with her reflection. My nose isn't perfect, it never will be, but it's mine, and it's part of a story that's helped thousands of people find hope. That's more beautiful than any perfect nose could ever be. If you're reading this and you're struggling, whether it's a cosmetic surgery complication or anything else that's made you feel lost, please hear me when I say this. You are stronger than you know. You are braver than you think, and your story matters. Don't give up. Don't stay silent. Fight for yourself the way I fought for myself. Find your people. Build your support system. Demand accountability. And never, ever let anyone make you feel like you don't deserve to look and feel like yourself. You do. You deserve it all. Trust me. I know. Because I've been there. And I made it through. And so will you.